everyone, and welcome to today's panel. Thanks for being patient with us while we got situated. We're really excited to have you here today and looking forward to a great conversation with our panelists. My name is Chelsea May. I'm the program manager for WICT Greater Philadelphia. I just have a couple housekeeping things I'd like to go over. So just a reminder that this event is being recorded, and we'll be sharing this on our YouTube channel for replay for all of our members. During the presentation, all attendees will remain in listen-only mode, except for our panelists. And lastly, if time permits, we'll be opening up some time towards the end of the event for some Q&A. If you have any questions for our panelists, please use the Q&A feature. You can add this to your side panel by clicking the 3 dots in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And then just when sending your question, please make sure you send it to all panelists. Before getting started, I did just want to give a quick reminder of some of our upcoming events. So first we have WICT Philly Gives Back. It's going on right now. So this year, instead of our annual in-person fundraiser, we're hosting a 6-week giving campaign. The fundraiser supports Girls Inc. of Greater Philadelphia and Southern New Jersey. It's an organization that teaches young girls to be strong, smart, and bold, and also emphasizes STEM careers. So now through next Wednesday, you can visit the link below and bid on fantastic experiences and items. We have lots of mentoring sessions, virtual coffee with Al Roker, Dyson vacuums, and lots more. And if you don't see anything that you're interested in, you can still visit the website. We're accepting donations through the website. Next is another event that I'm really excited to announce, and this is Achieving More by Doing Less with author and women's leadership expert Tiffany Dufu. This is going to be on December 4th. So it's going to be filled with actionable advice. She'll teach women skills they need to succeed, and also how to flourish at work and in life. So it's going to be really inspiring. She's a great speaker, has a great book, and we're going to be giving away copies, 25 of them to 25 lucky attendees who join our presentation. It's free for all WICT members of any chapter, and only $5 for non-members. And we'll be opening registration really soon for that, so hope you can join us there. And as always, thank you to our 2020 sponsors for always supporting us and making these events happen. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. So first we have Anna Sedgley. She's head of customer finance and advisory board at Afiniti. We have Sophia Ahmad, executive vice president and chief marketing officer at Xfinity Consumer Services. And they'll be joined by our moderator for today, Orlando Hampton. He's the GM and executive vice president of Afiniti and also a WICT global board member. So please, everyone, enjoy the event and take it away, Orlando.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. We're first of all just very excited to be here. I should tell everyone that Anna and I are very aware of all the social distancing rules and whatnot. We are currently on a business trip that required quite a few tests and whatnot. So we're amongst the safest people on the planet at the moment. So we are getting daily rapid tests. So I hope that's a good explanation for everyone out there. So look, we're thrilled. I'm excited to be here. This is a great opportunity to learn about two really, really important and very successful and powerful executives. I always like these opportunities to talk about how you got to this point in your career, what the journey was like to allow us to arrive at this point. And it's just a great opportunity for me to sit, and I feel like one of the people in the audience, but I will try to be a panelist and keep the discussion moving and ask all the right questions as well. So just thrilled to be here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Everybody at WICT, this is a powerful organization. The work that we do is really important. The messaging is very important. And there's nothing more important than getting together, especially during times like this where, we're not seeing each other a lot. There's a lot of great networking opportunities. Keeping up your relationships, keeping up your opportunities to communicate and still continue to learn are just very important things. And we stand by that. And so we hope that this contributes to that discussion. So with that, I think I'm just going to just dive right in. Sophie, since you're the only one not here, I should jump in and talk to you. Why don't can you open up and just tell me a little bit about how you and Anna actually met? That'd just be an interesting place to start, I think.
Of course, thank you. I'm disappointed not to be with you both, but I'm not subject to the rapid testing regime that you are, so hopefully I'll see you in person soon. So I joined Sky, I think it was 16 or 17 years ago, and when I joined Sky in the UK, that's one of the big media telco businesses in the UK. Anna, from the start, was a great role model and mentor to me. So Anna was one of those women who had somehow managed, at a time when it wasn't normal, to be able to balance having a family and having a career, being able to spend time with her family, as well as being somebody who really wanted to lift up other women and make sure that everyone had equal opportunities. And so I'm really excited to be here with Anna, because she was a huge influence on my career, and I think it was maybe 4 years into my time at Sky, she recruited me into her team, gave me a great new level of responsibility, coached me and mentored me to enable me to continue to grow my career. And I'm probably not the normal personality, the classic executive personality, in that I'm quite quiet and quite reserved, but I'm quite thoughtful. And Anna's one of those people where she can see talent regardless of all the noise, and really helped me grow my career. So forever grateful to Anna.
That's really, really awesome. I've stolen your mentor, by the way, Anna. Working with Anna now, I'm constantly ringing her phone and ring her up for advice. And she is someone who I don't know if you remember this, but when Anna and I first met, one of the first things she asked me is like, are you happy in what you're doing? What do you want to do next? How are you thinking about it? I was like, wow, this woman is really just trying to help me. She's like, let's talk about how we get you there. So I always really, really appreciated that. Anna, why don't you tell me about Sophie? Tell me about watching her and her career.
Well, it really is an honor to be on this panel today with Sophie, and I'm so proud of her and how she's eclipsed me and continues to soar. It's just really incredible. We did meet 16 years ago at Sky, and it's so strange to find us both here in the United States at different businesses, and I think it really speaks to the transition of and sort of the weaving in and out that you can have in a relatively long career, and how people come back into your life at various points. And so it's just hugely exciting. And I think as well for Sophie, she referenced her style, in a crowd, particularly at Sky, and I'm sure it's true of Comcast too, it's certainly true of Afiniti. There's a lot of intelligent people who are performing at a really high level. I think what makes Sophie really stand out is that personal style that she has. She just has a way of speaking such intelligent things. Everybody kind of sits on the edge of their seat to hear her. And, that became pretty obvious very quickly at Sky. And so it's really no surprise that here she is today, CMO of Comcast, Xfinity. So it's really a thrill.
Very, very incredible. So Sophie, CMO, that's a huge responsibility, especially for an organization the size of Comcast. It's like moving an army to get people, moving in the right direction and all doing the same thing. So tell us a little bit about like how you reached this level in your career. Like what are some of the advice that maybe you can give other people who are looking at the career ladder and one day thinking that they too could be in the C-suite?
Sure. Look, I'd love to say that 20 years ago I had one goal, and that was to be CMO at Xfinity, but that would be a big fat lie. So really what I've always looked for in my career is the opportunity to learn, and to learn new business areas, but also to learn from people. And I started my career at EY in finance before then moving to Sky in finance and then marketing. And each of those moves, and I probably moved roles every couple of years, were really opportunities for me to learn things that I didn't know from people who had a whole range of skills that I didn't have. And that constant desire to learn and grow myself and my team and the business, I think has really pushed me through my career. And I think one of the reasons that I'm here in the US is because I did get to the point where I was 20 years into my career and I thought, wouldn't it just be fascinating to work somewhere else? So having spent 20 years in the UK working there, that desire to learn has always been a big part of my drive. And so when the opportunity came up in America, it was once I was sure my husband and my son were good with it, it felt like a no-brainer because it's another huge learning opportunity and also the ability to learn from people that I really admire at Comcast and to work with brilliant people. So that's what's really, really driven me, I think. I think the other thing, so I would give one piece of advice to women, which is, I don't think you can always plan your career as you might hope to. So when I was 30, I had a really clear plan of, I'm going to have a baby when I'm 32, and I'm going to have a baby when I'm 34, and then I'm going to go back to my career when I'm 36, and then I'm going to do all these things. And I still haven't found that second baby. He or she hasn't turned up, sadly. And so I often say to people, you can't plan your career around imaginary babies. Babies will turn up when they want to turn up, and they will change your life in a way that's extraordinary. So just make sure you're doing something that you really enjoy and that inspires you and motivates you. That would be my piece of advice.
Amazing, amazing. Anna, I'd be interested to hear some of your thoughts around this. Like, I think our topic today is rapid change and dealing with things in that environment. And I think about, like, you know, there's no more kind of rapid change than a career change, right? When you're going in a whole other direction, and you made that jump. You went from the big corporates to a tech startup. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, well, unlike Soph, I did have a dream 25 years ago to be a CFO, and I'm pretty focused as an individual and goal-oriented. And I did. I made it as CFO of Dow Jones probably about 10 years ago now, and it was a job that I'd always wanted and aspired to, and it was an incredible experience. And actually, I went past that. I ended up as Chief Operating Officer, which kind of was a cherry on top in terms of my aspirations to be in the C-suite. But once I achieved that goal, it became, after time, obvious to me that it was time to disrupt myself. And as you said, Orlando, the topic today is disruption. And I think there's, you know, we talk and read frequently about disruption of the business, obviously disruption of the planet in 2020. But I wanted to touch on disrupting yourself, which is something that, you know, not many people talk about. And it's not without its risks. But a couple of years ago, that's the decision that I made. And part of it speaks to what Sophie mentioned about having a real curiosity and desire to continue to learn. And I found that particularly those who've worked in finance careers, and both Sophie and I started in the finance organization at Sky, I began to feel after, I think it was something, certainly in the hundreds, a couple of 100-month ends, life started to become a little bit repetitive. And after sort of 20 years of News Corporation forecasts, now I'm sure the Comcast, I've heard rumors about the Comcast budget and forecast cycle, but I'm sure they're probably true. But I felt that I was sort of not innovating myself and not learning anything different. So I made the leap from big corporate America at News Corporation, Dow Jones, into Afiniti, which is, you know, just about pre-public, I would say. So we're very late stage startup. I think startup is probably not the right word to use now at all. We're a full-scale enterprise, just waiting to go public. And it's been a great ride. I certainly am learning a lot. I'm certainly feeling very disrupted, and I'm concentrating on doing what you read a lot about in those who like to read self-development books. That concept of learning to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I thought I wanted it. When I got it, I struggled with feeling uncomfortable for a while. And I was like, what on earth have I done? Why can't I go back to where everything's really slow and I know what's going on and it's organized? But every day is a challenge. And I know as a person, I've really stretched myself. And I think that's my advice for the participants on the call is not to let yourself get too stale. Not to let yourself drift on in a role where you're no longer learning. And look at Sophie. She's just made that decision, a year ago, to move countries, to keep that fresh learning. And I think you'll find that in common with a lot of very senior people. They've switched divisions, they've switched locations, they've switched, businesses or industries, and they've really made an effort to keep themselves fresh and continuously learning.
Amazing. Oh, very good stuff. I've already taken down 2 notes. You guys just start talking. I'm already have a couple things that I'm like, wow, don't plan around imaginary babies. That's
a good one.
That's amazing advice. And disrupt yourself. Disrupt yourself. There's so much talk about disruption and the importance of disruption, but disrupting yourself is almost something nobody plans to do. Nobody plans to.
Oh, I did.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So Sophie, so look, when I think of disruption, and we've talked about Sky and Comcast, and I know there was a merger recently, and you go through like a big acquisition and lots of people moving around. Can you talk a little bit about that, like surviving and thriving, like during an environment like that? Any advice you might give to people, kind of just like, because that's something of a change. Those are the kind of unplanned changes, right? It's something you didn't plan, happens at the corporate level, and you just have to react to it. What advice would you give people in like dealing with a situation like that?
Yeah, the acquisition of Sky by Comcast was a surprise to me, if not to many people. Sky was in an auction process, so both Fox and Comcast were bidding for Sky. Fox had previously owned a minority investment in Sky for many years, really since its inception. So I personally didn't expect Comcast to acquire us, and then they did. And you have a choice. You either say, well, this is great, let's find out about Comcast, let's find out how we're going to make this amazing, or you don't. And for me, it was absolutely in the first category. And some of the Comcast team came out to see Sky as soon as the acquisition was announced and talked to us about their vision for the business. And the people that I met were hugely inspiring. So I immediately went to my boss and said, can I go to Philly and do a compare and contrast on some common business areas? Because I'd love to learn more and make our business better as a result. And I went to Philly, loved it, loved the business, and then found myself here. And I think that's because you have a choice when a big acquisition happens. You have no choice as to who's going to acquire your company, but you do have a choice as to how you embrace the opportunity. And for me, it always comes down to that desire to learn and that desire to be better and make the business in the UK better, make my team better, and really embrace it. And I think the acquisition has gone really well, and we're already seeing some of the synergies be realised between them, because many of the leadership team on both sides really embrace the opportunity to learn and be better as a result of it.
Amazing stuff. It's always a very interesting thing. I like your phrasing of you really have a choice of how you're going to react, right? You don't have a choice of what's going to happen. You have a choice of what your reaction is going to be to that event. And that always is just an interesting moment, because a lot of us go about planning out how things are going to be and I'll get this next role and I will eventually become an executive director or a senior director, but then something just shifts under your feet and then you just have to respond to that. So learning to adjust to that, or thinking about the way that you want to adjust to that, is really, really important. Anna, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I mean, the one constant is change. And, you know, I am a planner, like we've referenced that a few times already. But, you know, when, you know, for those participants on the call who do prefer to plan, I'm with you, but, you know, every kind of plan has to almost be adapted continuously, because there's so much outside of our control. As you said, all you can do is really be responsible for your own reaction and navigation. And, you know, truthfully, at times as well, emotion is often not your friend when making these sorts of assessments and decisions. And, you know, that's something that I've learned a lot through experience to try and separate that out. But, you know, I just want to touch on actually just what's been helpful to me in terms of navigating change and disruption. I think I've always found it useful to have, you know, a great sponsor and mentors inside the organization that I'm working in, as well as outside. And, you know, a sponsor in particular, if you have an internal sponsor, they can help you navigate. They often, if they're more senior than you, often have more information than perhaps you have. And, you know, while they may not be able to share any confidential information with you, it's somebody that you can signal your interest to, right? So let's imagine hypothetically I was in Sky and Comcast purchased Sky. You know, in that situation, I would have signaled. I mean, look at what Sophie did. In fact, that's exactly what she did. She said, "Can I please go to Philadelphia?" She made up a reason to go to Philadelphia. I'd love to go over and do a comparison exercise, right? But that's her being very creative in designing a response, in getting herself there and inside Comcast, right? Like that, no one came to Sophie and asked her to do that. She suggested it. And so, you know, I think it's having that clear presence of thought, having made the choice that you're going to stay and make it work, right? Sophie took that a step further and created an opportunity for her sponsor and her leadership team to find a way of bringing her in. And I think that, you know, that's very deliberate, and it worked, right? I mean, we can see the results.
And I think the point you made, Anna, about emotion not always being your friend, I think one of the things that Anna said to me many years ago will always stick with me. We were in the middle of a terrible budget process at Sky, and it was everything that could go wrong was going wrong. And she came up to me at the end of the day and she kneeled by my desk and she went, "If you need to cry, it's okay." Because sometimes you do, it's cathartic just to get the emotion out rather than trying to constantly be managing all of your emotions at once. And I think that's always really stuck with me. I've cried through quite a few budget processes since then.
Yeah. And it still rings true, right? Still great advice.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I also want to say, Soph and I share, so not only when I think about career, right, and it's, you know, participants know you're always advised to try and find one or two sponsors if you can, and that's different from a mentor. But I think as well, I would really encourage women to think about having a sort of a group of personal advisors. And they tend to be more peers, more sort of at level, friends, like, you know, tend to be former colleagues. So Sophie and I share a personal advisor in a very dear friend of both of us, Lucy Thomas. And, you know, it's probably the three of us understand just exactly what each other has been going through for the last 20 years. And, you know, there would be absolutely zero hesitation for the three of us to pick up the phone to each other and just say, like, what do I do? And to vent or to celebrate or to whatever those things are, having somebody who knows your world, who also knows you, and can give you advice that you can trust when you can't sleep clearly yourself. I think that's another priceless part of our success. Sophie, right? Cheers to Lucy.
Absolutely.
Incredible. Well, definitely cheers to Lucy. We'll have to add her to the next panel here. This is it's our missing musketeer. So Sophie, I wanted to ask you. So and this is a bit different. We'll change the page here, but if you think about rapid change and how you react to this. One thing that I'm always intrigued by are for really senior leaders, when you're sitting as the CMO and something comes along, right? A new innovation, something that is new and comes around and you have to rapidly grab onto this new thing. How do you actually balance that with all the other things that you are already juggling? How do you carve time out for this new innovation to make sure that somehow you're not behind the times because you just simply haven't had time to institute like a new innovation or a new thing. As somebody who works at like an artificial intelligence company, I always find this as an interesting balance because when I talk to executives, it's like, this is a tremendous idea. This is great. However, I have a technology stack that is already planned out for the next 5 years. So if you just wait 5 years, this would be a good time to do it. And obviously, you just can't put all initiatives to the back burner for 5 years. So I just wonder, how do you balance that? How do you get those new innovations in while keeping everything else going?
Yeah, everyone had a tech stack that's already set for 5 years, so it's not a strategy. I think for me, the most important thing is to have a really clear vision of what you want the business to be in 3 years' time or 5 years' time, to know what you want the customer experience to be, and to know what you want to be known for as a brand or as a company. And that, for me, really helps me to lessen the noise and actually look at each of the innovations and think, is this innovation actually going to help us take a significant step forward in where we want to be? We all have roadmaps, but we also all want to reach our end state as fast as possible. So if something comes to me that enables me to accelerate my path to that end state, then that has to take priority. But you can't do that without that clear vision of the future customer experience, the future brand, the future health of the business. And that it can happen in, thinking about rapid innovation. With the onset of the pandemic earlier this year, we had to change many things very quickly. For example, taking the vast majority of all our call centre staff to be able to work from home. And we knew that one thing we absolutely had to do was make sure that we could keep our customers connected. That was our line. We're committed to keeping our customers connected. Okay, what does that mean? That means we have to have customer service. Therefore, we have to enable our people to work from home. Anyone who isn't working from home has to be really safe. They have to have all of the safety protocols to keep them safe so they can keep themselves safe and also keep the network going. We need to be able to tell people that we're here for them and communicate as well. And that absolute mantra or mandate of we have to keep everyone connected helps us to innovate very quickly and help us sort through the things that were important versus the ones that were nice to have.
You touched on something near and dear to my heart, the contact center worker and that process, especially during COVID. We tend to think of frontline workers as people in stores and, people in those places. And of course, those are in fact frontline workers, nurses, firemen, people who can't just go inside and retreat to their homes. I think this idea of people in contact centers and the fact that people are still calling and we're still answering those phones, it's still happening, but to shift those operations from, places where you report to work every day to suddenly, some home office was not a small effort. And, really kudos to you and your team just for being able to do that without the significant disruption that I think we all expected. I think there was a moment where we just all expected no one's going to answer the phone anywhere because no one will be able to do it. And that kind of didn't happen. It just was like a transition that, appeared to be very smooth from a consumer side, but I'm sure on your side of the fence there was quite a lot of working to make that happen.
But it's down to what's most important. And for all of Comcast, for all of our care center teams, for our care operation, for our technology operation, we all knew that was most important. So everyone was moving in the same direction. And that's why we could innovate quickly.
I also think I had an experience early on in the pandemic where I went to a Trader Joe's store, and it must have been a couple of weeks in, and I said to the person on the checkout, like, thank you so much for coming to work today. We need food. So I'm so grateful that you came to work today. And the store assistant said, we absolutely love working at Trader Joe's. This company has been so good to us. They are such a good employer. Everyone has come to work every day. And we're just proud to work for this organization. And I think, clearly it's true of Comcast too. People they felt safe that Comcast was protecting them. And, that employee loyalty and that relationship with your employees and your teams, you needed to have worked on that for years. Like, if you did not have that and the pandemic struck, you were going to be in a lot of trouble. And I think it just is worth remembering that in terms of, as we think through what have we all learned, in business through this. I think that importance of having a great relationship and openness and mutuality with everybody who works there, has paid off, certainly for those companies who've thrived, like Comcast and Afiniti.
Amazing. Yeah, you have to dig your well before you're thirsty.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to, build that kind of relationship, build that loyalty, that incentive. That all has to be there. And then, something like COVID is a stress test, right? That is the moment where you see, did this investment pay off? This investment you made in your employees and your tools. And again, hats off to you guys for being able to manage through that, because, there was a moment there where, your cable company, right? Your broadband service, we were all living off of that. And, that was it. And we're just all functioning off of, our ability to connect. And, if that goes away, I don't know where we would have landed if we lost that connectivity. It's something that we just can't be without.
I think the other thing I've learned as well during the pandemic was not to believe everything at face value, first thoughts. Had you asked 12 months ago, can you get the call centers working remotely from home? The answer would have been a multi-month, if not multi-year exercise. And probably someone in finance, I can say this, as an ex-CFO, someone in finance would have said, oh, cost benefit, not worth it, right? And I think we've been forced to answer questions, as leaders and as managers, we've been forced to solve questions that we would have rejected in the past as being ridiculous. And I want to make sure I remember that. I want to make sure that I stop myself ever again giving that first reaction of, no, that's not possible. Come at problems from a different way, because I think we've all seen the impossible in the last 6 months, and we're better off for it. When we think of silver linings, that's a big one to me.
I love it. We've seen the impossible. I love it. So I'm gonna turn the page here a bit. So this is a WICT conference, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up that both of you as two women who are senior leaders, you have broken through, I'm sure, many glass ceilings along the way.
Still have the scars.
and I want to talk about, like, what are some of, Sophia, I'll start with you. Like, what are some of the biggest changes that you have seen in, like, D&I over your career? And, what are things that we can do to kind of continue to promote the right kind of approach today?
Well, having spent most of my career in the UK, I can only really talk about the UK workplace with looking back and seeing the progression. But for me, there are two things. Firstly, when I started my career, there just weren't very many women at senior levels. It was just such a low percentage. And so finding role models and mentors was difficult at times. Whereas now when I look around the workplace, it feels like we're in a different place. We're still not 50-50 in many companies, but you can see the progression. It's a completely different workplace environment where we were because of people like Anna, who were very successful very early on, pulling up other women and being the person who would say, hey, it's okay for somebody to go home at 5 o'clock because they have to pick up their kid or because they need to look after their elderly parent. And I think that is something I'm very grateful to many women for doing. In the UK, I was the sponsor of our LGBT network. Sky is now a top quartile company for LGBT inclusion, but 5 years ago it wasn't, because that wasn't something that people in the workplace were talking about and aware of. They weren't aware that some people were unable to come out at work because they were scared of what the reaction would be. And there was very limited awareness of the mental health impact of that. And I'm so excited to see that with more and more people talking openly about diversity, there's so much more awareness than there was about the fact that we can do a lot more to be inclusive of everyone. We still have a long way to go. But I think the progression is exciting, and I think we all have a role to play, whether or not we are in a minority, to make sure that everyone is treated equally.
Amazing. So Anna, I think about your experience in the finance world, becoming a very senior person in the finance world, moving into the technology space. Anna is just going from vertical industry to industry, and breaking through all glass ceilings everywhere, because there was certainly a time in the finance world where underrepresentation was vast and significant. And in the technology space today, as a technologist, I would say that we were kind of still in that space where underrepresentation is a major thing in the technology space. Can you talk a little bit about just your own journey and what you've seen, and then what are the best ways to try to continue to promote diversity and inclusion in the workplace?
Yeah, so for pretty much all of my career, I've either been a stepmother originally, and then 18 years ago, a mother. And so I've kind of done that juggle now, if you will, for 2 decades. And I must say I'm quite excited that my son will be off to college next year, and I'll be free. So I'm looking forward to that. But it has been the majority of my career has been trying to manage, a very challenging and compelling home life alongside my career. And, I've been successful by really relying on a support network. So support network outside of work, and my family are in Australia, and my career has always been in London or New York. So, the reality is a lot of my support network over the years has been people like nannies who've worked for me. I've not been able to rely on family, which has been, very difficult, truthfully at times, but I put support network in place and it's held up. And also support network inside the organizations as well. And I think, touching on what Sophie said, I think this is where we've all got a responsibility. And so, as a senior member of a team like Sophie and I, and you yourself, Orlando, are, we play a role in terms of bringing people up behind us, asking the challenging questions of our leadership teams. Are you interviewing enough women? Are you interviewing enough people of color? What's our pipeline look like? What are we doing to, develop young tech talent, STEM talent in particular? And, we participate in all of those programs, Women's Code, WICT, we're very active there. But no matter what level you've got, I think there's a personal responsibility. And the truth is, when I became the first woman at Sky in the finance team to return from a maternity leave, I didn't want that extra responsibility of trying to be the one that had to make the changes. But whether I wanted it or not, it was mine. And, I think whether everybody on this call wants to or not, you have a responsibility to push for an environment in the workplace that is welcoming of everybody. And, I don't care if you're on your very first day of your career, if you see something that's inappropriate, it's important to raise it, but not only on the negative side, on the positive side, you play a role in being welcoming yourself and learning about others and bringing everybody together and the power of a diverse team. I mean, we know, especially women who are members of WICT, we know that diversity is better business. So it's not a hard sell, right? It shouldn't be a hard sell. This stuff shouldn't actually be difficult because, we're on the side of the victors, right? Like, this is the right thing to be advocating for. But it just, it is an extra responsibility that when you carry that mantle, believe me, you'll feel better about yourself and you'll make the environment that you're in a much more pleasant one.
Yeah, I love the idea of acknowledging the additional responsibility. It is, I myself have been, in many spaces where I'm the only person that looks like me in that space. And you don't realize until other people say, hey, don't mess this up. Make sure you do. And I'm like, whoa, I'm in here not just for me, but
you're representing everybody.
Lots of other people.
Yeah.
Right? And there is a burden that comes along with that. But I think recognizing it first off is incredibly important. And then, the main thing is for me is making sure that we are intentional about these kind of things, because I think it's the intentionality is probably the biggest change for me. So I'm on the global board of directors for Women Cable, and I've learned many lessons, but one of the big ones was the idea around there are things that you just do not think of. You just don't understand. I'll tell you something I learned recently. I was sitting with Maria Brennan, who is our fabulous leader of WIC, and I was going through a job description with her, and she said, look, if you are writing this job description and you just put bullet points, these are requirements to get this job. You must have this university degree. You must have worked this long. You must have, worked in this industry. You are almost ensuring that you are going to reduce the pool of women who are going to apply for this job, because women will attempt to check off every box before they say that they would apply, whereas in general, men, if they could check off 60% of the things, they say, well, that is me, right? I'm a perfect fit for this job, and I can work my way through these other things. And so, it was just a small thing of, she said, look, if you write a narrative job description as opposed to bullet points, this will help to diversify the pool of candidates that apply for a job. And, that was like an incredible piece of advice. And, putting it into action, it like happened almost immediately. It was like nothing changed about the job posting. The job was still the same, but just the way that we wrote the job description provoked a different group of people to actually apply for that job. And like those are like the real things that I think if we can get, more voices in the room. I was in a room with Maria. She had a voice. She was in the room. And, that was a change that was significantly positive for us as a business. So, those are the kind of things where, I think if you can promote those messages and get that message out there, it's just super helpful. So I'm always looking to people out there who are blazing trails. And Anna, thank you so much for all the stuff that you've just done for me personally, us as an organization. So it's just all fantastic stuff. So excellent. All right, so we're coming to a close here, but I always ask this question on panels, and so I'm going to throw this out to you guys. This is a bit of a curveball question, but the question for you, Sophie, is of people that you know and respect, people that you like, what is your biggest disagreement with them in business? What is the thing that you disagree most with?
So something I've observed in both the UK and the US is that the business leaders believe that the market they're in is the market to be in. So UK leaders talk about the UK as if it is the whole world, and some US leaders do the same. And I think that we need to take a more global perspective. The pandemic has proven that in some respects, but when we're looking at population growth, GDP growth, there are many countries that are growing faster and will be bigger in terms of population and then eventually GDP that we are not investing in. And I still struggle to understand why there are some companies that can see that and make those investments, and there are some that don't. So that would be one, which is the world view. What is the most important market? For me, it's the whole world.
That's awesome. That's a really good one. That perspective is something that you come across a lot. People are kind of just have a myopic focus on one particular region and place. I even see that. It's interesting. I manage the U.S. in my company, and I even see that just regionally. People are they get focused on like their one little thing, and you're like, but wait, what about everywhere else? So when you take that globally, for sure, that could be a challenge. All right, so Anna, I'm not going to let you off the hook. I'm going to give you the same question here. The people you know and respect, what is your biggest business disagreement with them?
Well, I in fact have changed my own mind on this too. So prior to joining Afiniti, where I am now, I did have a misconception about what artificial intelligence was capable of doing right here, right now. And I think that many important, powerful people still perceive artificial intelligence as only being there to replace people. And, that was true actually of a project that I worked on as CFO. I did a robotic process automation change to our invoice processing. And, truthfully, the goal was headcount reduction. And, it was a successful project, but it was a bit soulless given that your objective is to reduce your headcount. And, what I've come to learn, is that, artificial intelligence, there are deployments such as the ones that, that Afiniti does, that we do Orlando together, is that we can actually enhance human interaction and improve human experiences and actually use it not just as a cost reduction, again, like former finance, experiences. It's all about reducing costs and flowing that to the bottom line. Actually, technology can be used to drive revenue, and you can use artificial intelligence to drive revenue. And so that's something, I'm sure everyone's going to get there in 5 to 10 years' time. But right now, I really feel like I'm on the cutting edge, and the experience that I'm having, I wouldn't have been wise to that, in my old, my old position. So, again, learning.
I like it. I really like it a lot. Well, look, we're coming up here on the end of our time. I really just want to thank both of you. This has been an excellent discussion. Again, I'm just honored to be in your presence. The work that you guys are doing is incredible work, and count me in as someone who is here to support both of you in your journeys and your missions. next time we get together, Sophie, we'll have to get you over to get a nurse to probe you every few hours. You can sit with us as well. But thank you guys so much. Thank you for everybody joining in. Chelsea, I'm going to throw this back your way.
Thanks, Orlando. All right, just bringing up this last slide. Again, thank you everyone for joining our event today. A special thank you to our panelists, Sophie and Anna, for sharing all your insight in the industry, life, your experiences in the workplace, and to Orlando for moderating and navigating the conversations for us. We really appreciate your time and for you being with us. And again, thank you to our 2020 sponsors. These events that we put on would never be possible without you, so we thank you. And last, to stay up to date on events, scholarships that we offer, anything WICT Philly, make sure you're following us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And also you can visit our website for wictphiladelphia.org for all up-to-date information. And we hope to see you at one of our next events. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.